Hi, this is Steve with OS Nexus, and in this video we're going to be going over a new feature in QuantaStor 5 that helps IBM customers access their cloud object storage from on-prem locations. When you've got servers deployed in the IBM Cloud, you can access your IBM Cloud object storage over private cloud endpoints rather than going over the public internet. But one of the challenges comes in when you set up a hybrid cloud and you need to access your cloud object storage over that same private network. Looks a little bit like this. So with IBM Cloud Direct Link, you can have your servers, like in this example, server 1, 2, and 3 can access server 4, 5, and 6. But whereas 4, 5, and 6 can access those private cloud endpoints, the servers in the on-prem locations cannot directly access those endpoints. They, by default, have to go over the public cloud network to those endpoints. So QuantaStor's latest feature solves this problem. QuantaStor now supports S3 Reverse Proxy mode for IBM Cloud Object Storage. So what this does is it extends those private cloud endpoints to the on-prem locations. So now all these servers 1, 2, and 3 can access that without any traffic going over the public network. Keeps it all within that encrypted envelope that IBM Cloud Direct Link forms. So what we're going to be going over today is basically setting up QuantaStor as a S3 reverse proxy for IBM Cloud, and then we're going to go and go through a quick little summary at the end. So I've got a couple of QuantaStor systems set up here. I'm going to go and start with the first one, and we're going to set up an S3 reverse proxy on it. And the way to do that is to first go to the section here that says Cloud Integration, and logging into the QuantaStor box, you'll just need the IP address and the username and password. So you'll get this through your IBM account after you've deployed 1 or 2 QuantaStor machines. If you have one QuantaStor system, you can set it up as a single proxy, but with 2, you can enable high availability for that proxy. So in the case one of those proxy systems goes offline, it'll automatically route the traffic through the other proxy using a virtual IP address. So here we're just going to log in. I didn't set a password on this one, so we can just log straight in using the default password. And this system is called QS90. We go to the Cloud Integration tab and go to the Reverse Proxy section, and then click on Create to create a new S3 reverse proxy. We can give this any name we want. This is just an arbitrary name. We can just call this proxy 1 AMS, and then we need to give it the fully qualified domain name for what the users in the on-prem location, those servers in the on-prem location, will use to access the storage, because the requests will come in to this proxy server name and then route out and create a link to whichever cloud provider endpoint we choose here. So I'm going to choose a name like that matches the endpoint that we're going to set this up for. So I'm going to choose proxy-AMS03 osnexus.net. So here I've got that selected here, and so we can map it directly to that domain. If you scroll down, you're going to see a whole bunch of different endpoints here. And these direct ones are publicly accessible, but when you're inside of the IBM Cloud inside using IBM Direct Link, you can start using these private endpoints. For this demo, I'm not doing this within a IBM Direct Link envelope, but or environment. So I'm just going to use the public endpoints. But when setting this up at IBM, you'll most likely be using one of these private endpoints. So like private AMS03 rather than the public. But for this demo, we're just going to use the public endpoint here. So I've got this name is going to map over to that. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that you're going to need to set up the DNS server so that it will go and route this to the QuantaStor system. So I've got this QuantaStor system set up at 10.0.8.90. This name needs to map to 10.0.8.90 in this example. I'm going to use a simple host file to set up the kind of simplified DNS for this demo, and I'll show you that host file in just a minute. But that's really all there is to setting it up. You just need to, you give it a friendly name for the proxy. You just call that like proxy, proxy1 AMS, and then the host name that you're going to use on your internal network, and then the endpoint to connect to. This part here on the self-signed certificates, it's going to generate certificates automatically with that checked, but if you have your own keys, you can bring those and set those here. So if you click generate, or not generate, but to add a key, this is where you go and add that key, and this is where you'd go and add certificate. You can use OpenSSL utilities to go generate certificates and keys and to go and add those in. I'm just going to use self-signed certificates for the demo here, and then I'm going to click OK, and it's going to go generate those keys and set up the proxy for us. So with just that one dialog, we've completely set up a nice reverse proxy to go and communicate with the system with the IBM Cloud. And so let's go through and verify that. Our proxy, you can see here with that fully qualified domain name is. And I was going to show you this. I didn't, rather than setting up DNS, I went and for testing and demo purposes here today, I just edited the host file here on my Windows workstation so that when I put in this, it's going to automatically route it to 10.0.8.90. But that's something you would typically be setting up in your DNS server. So here, let's bring up another window and point that. You can see here, I forgot to put in https://. We want to put that in, otherwise it's not going to direct us to the S3 endpoint. And here I'm saying yes, go ahead and do that, allow that. It's saying it wasn't secure because it was a self-signed certificate. If you take certificates that you have signed with VeriSign and add those into the proxy, then it would have been able to verify that automatically. But you can see here, this is exactly what you want to go see. When you go and you put this through, it's going to try to just do a simple HTTP GET request, and you should see this access forbidden. This is a good sign. This goes and shows that we are talking to the IBM Cloud Object Storage, and it's just giving us the standard error message back. But that verifies that the proxy connects all the way through from the QuantaStor box, or in this case, going from my workstation to the QuantaStor box, and then it forwarding those requests on, and it being that nice S3 reverse proxy for us. So that's kind of the basic installation or configuration process. But there's a couple more things that we can do here to make this a highly available proxy. And for that, we're going to need a second QuantaStor box. And so what you'll do for that is go to the Storage Management tab, and we're going to need to do a couple of steps to combine a couple of QuantaStor boxes together. The first thing is we're going to create a storage grid. And I'm just going to use the default name there, just storage grid. And now this QuantaStor box is a grid of 1. And I'm going to need another QuantaStor box so that we can make that proxy highly available. So I'm going to add a system to the grid, and I've got one at 10.0.8.91. I haven't changed the default password from password, so we can just add this box. And there we have it. So there's now a grid of 2 systems. And now we can go and make a virtual IP that floats between these 2 boxes. So that's the next step that we're going to go do. To do that, go to the High Availability VIF Management tab and create what we call a site cluster. We're going to select both boxes. We're just going to call this our proxy cluster. And this is going to set up a heartbeat between these 2 boxes. And that way, if either one of the boxes goes offline and it has the VIF for the proxy, it'll move it automatically to the other box. This takes just a minute for the heartbeat mechanisms to all initialize, and then we'll see after it's done initializing, this will go to the healthy state, and we'll see that 2 of 2 systems are online. Okay, it's almost done setting up. We can see it says it's in warning state. That's normal while it's getting things set up. The first one's reported in and said 2 of 2 is online, and now the other one's online. And then we'll see this warning state transition back to healthy and 100% here in just a minute. Now that we've got the proxy cluster set up and it's transitioned to the healthy state, we can go and add a virtual interface to this. So I'm going to go and add a site VIF and pick an IP address for that. Let's use 10.0.8.99. We'll attach it to that first interface. And then that's going to be able to float between the two systems that we've got set up. So this will float between QS90 and QS91. And so if it's on 90 and that one goes offline, it'll automatically move to the other box. So this little icon here indicates we've got that resource set up, that interface, and you'll see it appear over here in the Storage Management tab as a site VIF. So this virtual interface shows up right here. We can see that it's on QS90, and this can float back and forth between the two boxes. So we've done the cluster setup. We added our virtual interface to the cluster, and now we can add our second proxy endpoint, because we need to set up that proxy on the servers that we want it to be able to be highly available across. So we're going to go back to the Cloud Integration tab and make a copy of this proxy. So we're going to say create. Instead of generating new certificates, we're going to copy the certificates and all of the configuration from the proxy that we've already created, and then we're going to call this proxy 1 proxy 2-AMS, and we're going to put this one, instead of putting it on 90, we're going to put it on 91. And this, by virtue of this having the exact same proxy server name and endpoint, QuantaStor is going to automatically make this highly available. And so all we have to do then is click OK, and we have our second proxy. And you can see here that the endpoint and the server name are identical. And so we're done. It's fully highly available at this point. If we go and turn off QS90, that virtual interface is just going to automatically move over to 91. QuantaStor is also pinging the endpoint. So let's say there's a scenario where the first system, QS90, loses connectivity to the endpoint for whatever reason, network connectivity, such that it can no longer ping the object storage. The other system, QS91, if it can successfully ping, then it will preemptively fail over. It will move that virtual IP to the system that can still ping the object storage endpoints, and so it would move to QS91 in this case. So that's it. That's all there is to setting up a highly available proxy. You can add more and more proxies and just through the same mechanism that we just did there. So let's take a look at the summary to wrap up. Really easy to deploy, as you saw. You can deploy a single S3 proxy, reverse proxy endpoint, or you can set them up in pairs to make it highly available. You can bring your own keys, or you can have it generate keys. In that example, we generated some self-signed keys and then reused those keys on the second box. Works with all the IBM Cloud endpoints worldwide, and everything is encrypted. So as you saw there, we had to put in HTTPS. It's going over port 443, and everything's encrypted with SSL TLS 1.2. The alert management system, that's one thing I didn't go over, but if you lose, if the HA system has to fail over the proxy endpoint, you can configure inside of the alert management system in QuantaStor. You just click that button. You can set it up to send you a Slack or a PagerDuty alert or an email in any event where it has to do a failover or it loses access to the endpoint due to network disruption. And in terms of the QuantaStor specification, how much hardware do you need in the QuantaStor configuration? It's pretty minimal. You'll want something like a 4-core machine with 16 gigabytes of RAM. We'll have QuantaStor available as virtual machines soon, if not already by the time you see this video. But in the interim, you can just use QuantaStor really small specification 1U servers. You don't need much for attached storage to these servers. You want just 2 drives so that you can mirror them together so that you've got a mirrored boot drive, but you don't need additional storage within the box for the proxy. There's no limit on capacity, so using the extra small license, you can have that proxy to a petabyte of storage or more in the IBM Cloud. So there's no metering of the traffic or cost based off of how much usage of IBM Cloud you're doing. And if you need any assistance, just email us at info@osnexus.com. Happy to help you and assist with your setup and configuration of the S3 proxy like we did here today. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video.